Welcome to Am I Famous Yet? Chapter 6, Hershey Happy. Let's get back to the Road Chronicles for a moment. Here's a story about Bowser, the lovable bass singer from the band Sha-Na-Na. Let me be clear about this. I absolutely adore John Bauman, aka Bowser. He's a great guy and a lot of fun to work with, but he will confirm that the first time we met, we had a little incident. We were playing a multi-act oldies show at Hershey Park in Hershey, Pennsylvania, the sweetest place on earth. They have an amphitheater in the middle of the amusement park that's identical to the one portrayed in the movie This Is Spinal Tap in the puppet show / jazz odyssey scene. The show we were playing was billed as Bowser's Rock and Roll Party and featured 3 or 4 acts playing their hits for 20 or 30 minutes each. This is a very common setup for oldies shows. Bowser also likes to have the show look as much like the 1950s as possible to complete the nostalgia trip. He has all of his band guys dressed in matching greaser costumes with rolled-up t-shirts, rolled-up jeans, and baseball caps. Since I have long hair and tattoos, Bowser calls me a hippie. I love this. With all of the many genres of music and styles of dress that have been popular since 1959, many of them involving long hair, the one he seizes upon to describe me is hippie. Peace and love, baby. For these gigs, often there's a house band who will back up all of the acts for the day. Bowser does these shows all over the country. He has a great road-tested format that plays really well with the crowds. He prefers to have his own guys be the backing musicians for all of the singers. It keeps the changeover time between acts to an absolute minimum and keeps the show running at a good pace. He's right about this. It works well. That day, I was performing with Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee Shirley Alston Reeves, original lead singer of the world-famous Shirelles. That's her full legal marquee billing. I'll discuss this more later on. Shirley is more comfortable having her own band playing behind her, so she doesn't have to worry about the pickup musicians giving her anything other than what she's used to hearing. She shouldn't have to be distracted by them making mistakes playing her arrangements or songs that may be unfamiliar to them. She's also right. This works well for her. Because both of these positions were correctly held, there was a tiny bit of tension in the air that day at the sweetest place on earth. Bowser wanted to keep his show running smoothly, so maybe, just maybe, he introduced Shirley a tiny bit quicker than he might have introduced the other acts to prove a point, or more likely to realize his fears that the band changeover would be uncomfortably long. Since it was going to take time for us to physically change guitar cables and reseat a different drummer and keyboard player, he worried that there would be dead air between his introduction and the actual start of the first song. This would not be good in terms of a tight show business presentation. We knew about this fear and were ready for him. As soon as he said, maybe a little too quickly, "Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Shirelles Reeves," boom, we came in immediately with the downbeat of the first song. It had to be a land speed record for a band changeover. Shirley is a lovely performer who has a lot of hit records, all of them great songs. As always with her, the show went great with the audience. That gig was a 2-show day outdoors in the heat of summer. I'm pretty sure that was one of the days when our diabetic drummer got dehydrated and needed some medical attention to get his electrolytes back to normal. As such, we understandably had our shirt sleeves rolled up, no tuxedo jackets on, and we're trying to get away with wearing as little as possible. Backstage between shows, Bowser poked his head into the band dressing room and said to me, "You'll have to roll down your sleeves because you're not Hershey happy?" Then he kind of giggled and left the room. The whole band were scratching their heads. Hershey happy? What the hell is that? Was he serious? Was that an actual thing? I went to talk to Shirley to find out if this was a real concern and if there was anything I actually needed to do about this. She confirmed that, yes, the park management had told Bowser that I was indeed not Hershey happy. Apparently, this was a corporate motto they used around employees of the park. Even though I wasn't a park employee, we were still appearing on their property and being paid by them. By displaying my tattoos, I was decidedly not Hershey happy. Even though all of their patrons were walking around with wife beaters and tattoos ablazing, I had to make a couple of adjustments. I rolled down my sleeves to cover up my ink. I also pulled back my long hair into a ponytail. The problem was apparently solved. The second show went off without a hitch. We heard no more about it. The following winter, I got a call from a drummer friend, Gary Weiss, who was hiring a band to back up Bowser at a private Christmas party at a house in New Jersey. Most people who know Bowser from the movie Grease or from the hit Sha-Na-Na variety show on network television don't realize that he's also a Juilliard-trained classical pianist, as well as being a lovable greaser. His knowledge of music is extensive, his ears are extremely sharp, and his book of charts are very specifically written out note for note. When one is playing a Bowser show, one must be a fairly adept sight reader, which I am not particularly, since he doesn't advance copies of his book to allow practice ahead of time. You have to be really on point or he's going to fuss at you, and he will be right to do so. You will have had it coming. I was intrigued about having the chance to play Bowser's book, but I also had the recent Hershey Park incident freshly in mind. I told Gary that I would love to do the gig, but I had one request. Don't tell Bowser it's me. I had no idea if he actually knew my name or remembered me at that point, but I didn't want to take the chance that he had a no hippie policy for hiring musicians. We met at Gary's house in Staten Island a couple of hours before the gig in order to rehearse. Then we were going to caravan over to the gig not far away in North Jersey. When I arrived for the rehearsal, I knocked on Gary's front door. For some reason, Bowser himself answered. He saw me and exclaimed immediately, "Oh, it's you." It was looking like it might be a long night. We rehearsed in Gary's basement. I was sight reading Bowser's book with every fiber of concentration I could muster. I was already behind the 8 ball with him from Hershey Park. I knew that he was a perfectionist with bat-like ears. I really had to nail his book as best I could if I wanted to survive the gig. I also knew that it was just hours before the show, so he didn't have time to fire me and get somebody else to play the bass. That was all part of my nefarious plan. As it turned out, my sight-reading ability coupled with my familiarity of 1950s doo-wop music was sufficient to make Bowser remark after the rehearsal, "Well, we can't fire you because you played the book so well." Phew. A happy boss makes for a happy gig. Off we went into the crisp winter's night, out into the ritzy suburbs of northern New Jersey. Christmas lights were out in full force as we passed lawn after lawn bedazzled with myriad Santai and Rudolphs. Finally, we pulled up to the most garish display of holiday lights I've ever seen. The house was a gigantic McMansion on perhaps an acre of property that seemed to have every square inch covered with tiny twinkling lights. As soon as we stepped toe onto the driveway of the house, we were immediately met with a couple of sides of beef who were apparently event security. They wanted to confirm that we were indeed the band, as if carrying our instruments wasn't enough of an indication. We were then beefily escorted around the house to a separate pool house out back. This amazing scene appeared to be an exact replica of the cement pond set from the Beverly Hillbillies show, complete with faux Greek columns and statuary. The pool house was adjacent to a multi-car garage that seemed to house several very large and very aggravated dogs. We could hear them barking and scratching on the other side of the wall, and were pretty glad that we were out of their range. I'm quite sure that garage door was routinely opened with the command, "Release the hounds." Also notable in the pool house were mountains of food and a couple of the wait staff hired for the evening. This didn't seem unusual since there are often staging areas for the caterers outside of the main party, for the wait staff to pick up trays of food, return empty plates, and whatnot. This wasn't a staging area, as it turned out. This food and these wait staff were there for the exclusive use of the bands performing that night. There was more than just Bowser on the bill. This is almost unheard of. As musicians, we are routinely reminded that we are the hired help. We don't get provided with people hired to serve us. The wheels started turning in our heads. McMansion, garish lights, cement pond, bodyguards, attack dogs, mountains of food. Dude, I think we might be working for a mobster. I mean, legitimate businessman. Keep in mind, this was years before The Sopranos was on television. We never did confirm the name of our host, nor did we want to. In these situations, the less you know, the better. When showtime arrived, we were escorted by security into the main house. The place was mobbed. Really crowded. Scantily clad women seemed to be everywhere, all but falling out of their dresses. I kept saying to myself, don't make eye contact with them, don't look at anyone. It just felt like my continuing good health depended on it. They walked us down into the low-ceiling basement where the main action was. There was a gigantic rumpus room down there with people packed in like sardines. There was a full concert rig set up as part of the house. The gear wasn't brought in just for the party. Stage lights were screwed to the ceiling. There was a full PA system, backline amps, drums, keyboards, everything. It was like a rock and roll man cave down there. To further set the scene, our host was on the microphone in the process of introducing Bowser as the next performer. That's when we noticed that, apparently, he had decided that a Christmas party was also fair game to be used as a costume party, though he seemed to be the only one in fancy dress. What was his costume, you ask? Well, he was dressed as a 1920s Prohibition-era zoot-suited gangster. Yes, I know that zoot suits were from the 1940s, but that didn't seem to matter to this dude. It was a subtle statement he was making. Whatever his occupation, he seemed to relish the aura of being perceived as a mobster. As we mounted the stage, I noticed another phenomenon that would become a challenge for me during the gig. The stage was only about a foot high, but with the low ceilings in the basement and me being 6'5" tall, it was impossible for me to stand fully upright on the stage. I had to bend my head sideways a bit and eventually settled into a spread-legged stance that allowed me to keep my eyes level for reading the sheet music. Reading was crucial for a Bowser gig. It was a sweaty mess down in that basement. Everyone was feeling everyone else's hot, drunken breath. As the show got underway, a visibly intoxicated young lady was dancing right in front of me. Don't make eye contact. At one point, she bumped into my music stand, nearly knocking it over and jostling the sheets, making them much harder to read. I just shook my head and turned the music stand back to where I could see it. I knew that any chance I had to remain in Bowser's good graces depended on me duplicating or bettering my performance in rehearsal. A moment later, she drunkenly bumped into the music stand again and again. My blood pressure was starting to ratchet up. I saw her coming toward the stand yet again. At that moment, everything suddenly went into slow motion. I saw my hand reach out and physically push her shoulder away from the stand, while simultaneously my mind is saying, no, don't touch her, but it was too late. Reflexively, I had just shoved some mobster's girlfriend. Though it did seem to prevent her from knocking into my stand for the remainder of the show, my internal voice was saying, well, this is it. This is how it ends. This is where I will die. This is the place where I will be outfitted with cement shoes and thrown into the lake. It's been a good life. I wish I could have seen a little more of it, though. After the set, as we were winding our way back through the crowd, to exit the premises forthwith, the same girl was blocking my path. Oh boy, here it comes, I thought. She said, I just wanted to say that I'm so sorry I bumped into your music. Oh, no worries at all, I said. I'm so sorry that I put my hand on your shoulder. And that was it. Instead of getting whacked, I got an apology. That did not go the way I expected it to. We beat a hasty retreat out into the Springsteenian winter. Bowser and I have been friends ever since. I always enjoy performing his shows.